Morning everyone, I'm George from Building Compliance Testing. I'm relatively new to this group, so what I thought I would do today is just do a general introduction to myself as a person and then go through how the business was founded, which was founded in 2020 during COVID. So my background is as an environmental consultant. I started off at Western Homes, a regional building developer. So building compliance testing exists to provide consultancy under environmental planning. So anything on a new build or conversion that requires planning permission and there's conditions of that. We can go through anything that's environmental based to address those conditions and satisfy them. And then the other side is pre-completion testing, which looks at the building regulations. Again, anything environmental based, looking at them and discharging them and satisfying them. So when I was at Westerns for the 8-year period, I worked for one of their subsidiaries called SES. Don't want to remember that name, but learning every individual work area so I could specialise in those work streams and provide a one-to-one relationship with clients. After the 8-year period at Westerns, COVID hit in 2019. The way that the business came about was through my connections, through my network. Quite a few smaller one-man bands decided to close up shop, retire, and some of the specialist equipment became available, which I then purchased, which then formed Building Compliance Testing in 2020. From there, it's been a bit of a side hustle. So I've worked for 2 specialist consultancies, multinational consultancies, trying to specialise in two specific areas. One being contaminated land, so anything to do with contaminated land. So that's like brownfield sites, looking at brownfield sites. So that's old commercial, industrial sites that are becoming residential end use essentially, and acoustics. So again, imagine if a developer or builder wants to build on a piece of land, there's a noisy railway, road or industrial estate next door, they'll need an acoustic assessment to address that and obviously mitigate noise. Essentially that's all about making sure you have a good night's sleep, essentially. So yeah, that is that. And then from there, most recently, I'm changing direction into a bit of building surveying. So the business is now into three arms. We have the building regulation testing, so that is air tightness testing. So it's all part of your EPC, by the way. Sorry, I should probably say that. So that green chart, well, that chart that goes green to red, A to F. To generate that certificate on a new build, you have to do a SAP assessment. Part of that, you're looking at air leakage within a building. So we have to do an air tightness test. So that's one in pre-completion testing. The other one is what we call sound insulation testing. So that's part E of the building regs, which is, again, it's all about you being able to sleep in your bedrooms if you don't want to hear your next door neighbour doing whatever they're doing. So there's a regulation there to make sure you can't hear that. So that's another one on pre-completion testing. Ventilation is a big one at the moment. You might be hearing it in the news, especially about mould and damp and issues like that. So this is very, very important. Where at the moment we're looking at ventilation on a larger scale to make sure builders, developers have got extract vents in bathrooms and they're all fit for purpose to prevent mould and damp. There's a regulation for that, that's part F. There's also water calculations. Sorry, it's a lot, covering a lot, which is part G. So again, any new build or conversion, we're looking at water efficiency. So again, there are certain criteria we need to meet. So we're looking at flow rates on showers, just water uses in general. That needs to be addressed, so we can provide that. So that's all the pre-completion testing. The second arm is what we just said about the planning. So I specialise personally in contaminated land and acoustics. We use partner consultants, because obviously I can't do everything, that deal with air quality and odour. You'll find, again, a lot of brownfield sites will be next to, say, a pub or another commercial site which will be generating odours. Or there'll be a source of dispersion of contaminants, pollution, air pollution. That might even just be a roadway, so that has to be assessed a lot of the time as part of the planning process. So that is that work stream. And the third one is the domestic sector. This is probably the largest area of my bread and butter at the moment, which we want to work towards the others, which is the domestic sector. So that's the EPCs, the energy performance certificates, and using current building regulations and the tools and the equipment we use to address residential, homeowner issues or rental. So you might be aware, for instance, again, it's not set, but if you're going to rent a property, potentially, but at 2025, that EPC banding at the moment, it's an E, that will be popping up to a C. So that will be a difficulty for a lot of people that are renting properties. So we can tackle things like that. It's all under the umbrella we call retrofit, which is basically energy efficiency improvements. So that's looking at EPCs, and as part of that, if you're doing large refurbs, again, the building regulations kick in. So all those other services we said about pre-completion testing, they all hop onto that. So yeah, that is it. Sorry, I covered a lot there quite quickly. But really the crux is, my type of referral is obviously the developers of the world, regional. I only cover a 50-mile radius really of Malden. I can branch out. I've got a network of other small consultancies, one-man bands like myself that I work with to cover bigger patches, but myself is probably a 50-mile radius of Malden in Essex. Where am I going with that? And then, yeah, so that's the coverage. Yeah, my typical, or my perfect referral really would be the developers, the builders, and obviously just networking with trades, because obviously a lot of the consultancy we provide is relevant to the trades, say electricians if they're installing extract ventilators and things like that, and obviously the snaggers of the world that are going in after us, after building control sign off, and then they're picking it to pieces. We want to work hand in hand to make sure we're compliant at sign off, so the developer doesn't get a slap on the hand. So yeah, and then quantity surveyors, architects, obviously, planners and things like that. So yeah, large pool of people that I'd be fishing for. All right, that's probably me, covered everything. I've probably bumbled on a bit. Any questions? Go on. So in the residential side, if we're looking at the domestic issues like you're talking about there, the tact is a lot more educational based. So it's putting that understanding across. If you open your windows after you've been in bed for 10 hours in the night and you've generated all that moisture, open up your window for 10 minutes. You won't lose all that heat, but if you get good cross ventilation, so windows either side, you'll be amazed how that humidity will drop. And it's just educating people to know that you're not losing all your heat. Systems, trickle vents, extractors are there and they're designed for a reason. And it's just that reassurance as well. And then also making sure that those systems that are in place are service maintained and things like that. So a lot of it is behavioural at the moment. And we are in a bit of a pickle as a nation with the cost of living and things like that. And it is a massive balancing act. Yep. Cool.
Okay, thank you very much, George.
Thank you.
Now we know.
I'm slapping myself.